Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Unvarnished Football. I'm Michael Jackson of the Game Before the Money, and with me, as always, Upton Bell, former Baltimore Colts executive, former general manager of the New England Patriots, former college basketball player. We haven't talked about that, but former college basketball player for LaSalle. And we're gonna start by talking about this Brenden Sorsby um, gambling injunction that was given. He received an injunction from the court that's going to allow him to play college football this year and make millions of dollars playing college football. After he admitted to gambling on college football, after he admitted to gambling on his team. A lot of people up in arms about this, but legal injunctions are pretty common, and in our society of innocent before proven guilty, he's got a right to appeal this. In fact, I'm going to read the NCAA handout. I'm going to read right. This is from Don't Bet on It, and part of the NCAA's website. It says that student athletes found in violation of NCAA sports betting rules may be subject to permanent loss of all remaining athletic eligibility in all sports and loss of their athletic scholarships, subject to appeal. Okay, so he's appealing this, and so this is within his legal rights to do. Now, whether you think it's good for the game, whether you think it's right, um, you know, that's another story. Of course, we don't. I don't think it's good for the game. But Upton, you and I, we've been talking about the dangers of gambling and the dangers of college football, Major League Baseball, NFL specifically, being in bed with sports gambling and having them as advertisers. So this is one of the fallouts.
Well, let me take you all the way back again, and we've talked about it before, to 1946. The New York Giants football team playing the Chicago Bears, and the night before the championship game, my father gets a call from District Attorney of New York, Frank Hogan, saying, Mr. Bell, you better get to the District Attorney's office immediately. We're going to also get in touch with the governor because two of the New York football giants, the quarterback, Frank Fulchak, and one of the running backs, Merle Hapes, have been offered bribes to throw the championship game. And so my father, who was set to come up early the next day, got on a train, went to New York City. They met all night long with the district attorney, and my father took quick action. He suspended Merrill Hapes for life from the NFL. He would later suspend Frank Fulchak, the quarterback, but he let him play in the game, understanding that if he stripped him of the two top players, and particularly the quarterback, that would be it. The next day, my father announced it to the media, got out in front of the whole thing, and many people think not only did he save professional football, but he marked it as all sports being against betting. You take it from there to what has happened to today, and you see what is the worst thing that has happened of it all. Because some whacked out judge in Texas decided, you know what, I'm going to be a big deal and give this kid a second chance. I'm going to grant this. What has happened, more importantly, is college sports, the NFL, all major league sports. Once the Supreme Court, and again, they're the ones that I really blame initially, but the minute that the Supreme Court said gambling should be legalized and was, every team ran, every league ran to get in bed with gambling, and I still maintain today, I'm more of a purist than other people are. It's the worst damn thing that has happened to all sports. Now, I've got 3 television sets, and I can tell you this: there are two things in life that I try to avoid, and one of them is every 30 seconds to a minute, particularly on ESPN, bet MGM, bet DraftKings. Every show is brought to you by DraftKings around sports, or bet MGM, or you name it. And now they have sports stars, which was a no-no in the past. I mean, Peyton Manning, you name them all, and they're all there, and particularly the Manning family with BetMGM. And it gets worse and worse. So back to what you're talking about. So why wouldn't these college kids be gambling? Even it says in the NCAA rules and regulations, this is what can happen to you. They're going like, what the hell? You know, I'm going to gamble on my team.
Well, and I am totally with you, and this is what we've been talking about. It's something that I've been talking about since day one. Was, hey, these kids that are watching sports, they're the next generation of college athletes. They're the next generation of pro athletes, and they're growing up watching gambling commercials on TV during sports. It's going to be natural for them to think gambling and sports go hand in hand, and they're going to want to participate.
Well, it's not only that. What about even the pros? You don't think, and you and I've discussed this before, you don't think that a lot of players anonymously call their cousin or their uncle or somebody and say, hey, listen, don't trace it back to me. I want you to place a bet for us to win by 10 or 15 points. Some might even say, listen, if I miss a block or two, that's going to be fine. We've seen what's happened to baseball with the Cleveland Indians pitcher and other things. Is you are just putting it, you're giving everybody a chance to say, well, so and so did it, why shouldn't I bet? It's legal. I can do what I want. And that's the worst thing that's happened. The college can write all the rules and regulations they want, and I guarantee you they're not going to stop it until they write their own rules and say, if you're caught gambling, you're gone. But they don't have enough balls to do that.
Well, and those supposedly are the rules, okay? But here, and they said that to Brenden. The NCAA said that to Brenden Sorsby. Now, I'm quoting the ESPN story to give everybody some facts, and then I'm going to quote actual NCAA materials, okay? NCAA research, okay? Now, this is from the ESPN report. Sorsby acknowledged he had wagered at least $90,000 on pro and college sports over the past 4 years, including 40 bets on Indiana football while he was a freshman with the Hoosiers in 2022. Okay, so now, if your mind races back to Art Schlichter, like mine did, all right,
Yeah.
who thought we'd be talking about Art Schlichter again? But for those of you who don't know, Art Schlichter was he's an Ohio State quarterback and a pro football prospect, high pro football prospect, and you know, his career went south on betting while he was a college athlete. But if you think Art Schlichter and Brenden Sorsby are the only two, okay, this is also from the handout that is given to that is created for student athletes as a guideline by the NCAA. Okay, this is a pie chart. It says student athletes who reported betting on sports within the last year. Okay, these are NCAA student athletes. 31% of the male student athletes who were polled by the NCAA reported on betting on sports within the last year. Okay? Now, student athletes who reported betting on sports once a month or more, 31% of male athletes. Okay? It's significantly less for female athletes as far as a month or more. Now, every so often, the NCAA has done a survey, and you know, this is what drives me nuts about the major sports media is people aren't, they're not covering this. They're just kind of doing their own hot takes and whatever. But the NCAA, and I'm quoting this executive summary of their last study, which was done in 2024. The NCAA has conducted 5 national surveys of student-athlete gambling behaviors and attitudes. That's in 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016, and then most recently in 2024. So, and in 2024, over 21,000 student-athletes were surveyed. So here are some of the results here, okay? Percentage of student athletes gambling for money during the previous 12 months in Division I sports, men, 45%. Okay? Gambling.
That's thousands.
It is. Gambling behaviors among, and that includes everything. That includes betting on horses, playing poker, dice, craps, that sort of thing. But now we're getting to the nitty-gritty. How many of them bet on sports? Okay, in the past year, 21.5% of NCAA student athletes, male student athletes, reported on betting on sports in the past year. Almost 11% bet monthly or more. Okay, now of those. In Division I, let's see here, 5% of Division I student athletes playing college football, okay, that's 5% in the 2024 study. Percentage of Division I student athletes playing college football reported that they bet on sports at least once a month, okay? And where is it here? Of those, I can't. I'm scrolling through this, but yeah, okay. Targets of student athletes frequent sports betting in the past year. 21% had bet on college football of male student athletes. 21%, and so you've got many, and this is a survey, you know. Of Division I athletes and college sports as a whole. But you've got, that means that Brenden Sorsby is not the only college football player betting on college football. He's far from it. And in fact, I wouldn't say it's rampant, but some of these percentages are a lot higher than what I expected. And remember, 31% of all student athletes are betting on sports when the NCAA says, hey, you're going to lose your eligibility if you bet on sports. Okay, but 31% of them are doing it.
Yeah, and they don't pay any attention. As we know, a college kid's attention span is like for 20 seconds, and that's it. But the NCAA has made their own bed, and until they, you know what? The NCAA, Charlie Baker, who was the governor here in New England and Boston, is Charlie Baker. If Charlie Baker came out and made a strong statement backed by a lot of lawyers and say, we want to be very clear here that we will go to any courtroom, we will go to any place in the United States, and if a player is caught gambling, and he's talking about their major sports, football, basketball, baseball, anybody caught gambling, they will be dismissed. That is it. they can't play, that they're ineligible. But they're not going to do it because the NCAA takes money from gambling themselves. I mean, so how 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 do you ever solve all this? We can cite all the statistics we want, but the die is cast. The Supreme Court, and once they said it's okay to do it, and we're going to take it out of the hands of the bookmakers and now put it in the hands of the general public. That was the license to begin to steal, and this is what we get. And I guarantee you this, between these guys running from place to place to place, although I see the NCAA wants to stop that, you can only go to one or two places now instead of four or five. Until they stop all this, I'm going to watch with a jaundiced eye any college football game. I don't care how many playoff teams they have now, because it's really been diluted what's happened here.
Well, and Upton, you were talking about, while we were talking before recording this gambling on sports and players potentially being involved. Because I think I'm with everybody else. I don't care if I don't care if these kids are betting on sports, as long as it doesn't affect their performance.
How do you know?
Because but there's where we get it, and a significant amount of players, and I don't have that stat handy, but in part of these surveys that the NCAA done, a significant amount of players had noted that performances had been affected by some sort of sports wagering. Oh, here it is. Okay. This is, and you can find all this on don'tbetonit.org. These you can download these materials and read the NCAA's guidance to student athletes and the results of these studies that they have done. But here's the key findings of 2,000 college football players surveyed. 102 admitted at least one of the following extreme behaviors: taking money to play poorly in a game, or knowing a teammate who took money to play poorly in a game, or been threatened or harmed because of sports wagering, or have been contacted by an outside source to share inside information. Okay? So, and actually providing inside information on a game. Okay. Now, if a college player or any player is providing inside information on a game to sports gamblers, I really don't, me personally, I don't really care too much about that, because I don't think that affects the game. I think it affects gambling.
I don't agree.
Okay.
Any move towards the gambling aspect of it, to me, is just the beginning, and I will cite examples. I played both with gambling fixers in college basketball. I played against fixers in college basketball. I played with a guy by the name of Eddie Bowler at LaSalle College in Philadelphia, one of the four major college basketball teams in Philly, and actually in Pennsylvania. And I never realized his name was Eddie Bowler, and I can remember, we come just before halftime, and we're playing at the Palestra, and this guy would come running down from the stands and kind of berate him going into the locker room. And I remember saying to somebody, "Who is that?" And they said, "Well, we think it's either his father or his uncle." Well, it turned out to be neither. It was a gambling fixture screaming at him, basically, in a different manner, saying, "You know what? You're not giving the ball away enough. You're not throwing baskets." And we only found out later on when the full expose came, because As a freshman, I played against the three fixers for St. Joe's College, which was at that time coached by Jack Ramsey, who went on to be the great coach of the Portland Trailblazers. And Ramsey was heartbroken because 1960, I think it was, they played in the semifinals. They played Ohio State and lost to Ohio State, and they ended up winning the consolation a night or two later, and ended up in third place. What they didn't know until they came out in the expose that Kempton, Egan, and Majewski, the three guys I had played against, were fixing games, and all of this would happen. And you talk about the little things. I played in the summer leagues in Philadelphia and in Narberth with some of the great players in the game at that time, including George Raveling, who was eventually became the captain of Villanova, and the guy who has the Martin Luther King speech, although he died a year or two ago. All of these people would be met, not Raveling or some of the people I played with, but in the summer leagues, that gave the opportunity for the gamblers kind of pretending like they were just fans coming to watch these games that drew thousands of people. That's where they met the basketball players and got to know them and then got them to fix games. So
well, and that's what I want to be clear. When I made my last statement about, like, I don't think giving information is that big of a deal, but it's the fixing of games and the performance aspects. That's what I'm most concerned about, and that's what you're talking about here.
Well, the big thing is that they're able to ingratiate themselves, and most of these kids, a lot of these kids were poor, or came from lower middle class families, and they get their scholarship, and in those days a scholarship meant a lot because your family couldn't even at the very low prices compared to today. That was your way. You got room and board, and you got a free education, and most of them really finished college. So this type of thing meant if you get caught, I mean, it's never going to be the same again. Now, one of the greatest movies ever made on the mob was made by Martin Scorsese, called Goodfellas. If you remember, Henry Hill, the guy who was one of the lead people in the movie, was the guy that really helped fix the Boston College team that blew their whole team up. They really had some terrific seasons, but a couple of their players were involved with Henry Hill and threw games. So, I mean, it's just incestuous, and it is so dangerous. And where we are now, where kids can bet, they can jump from school to school. What's in it for me to really believe any of them, including, let's say, Arch Manning at Texas or some of your big stars? How do we know they're not gambling?
And that's exactly what some of these surveys are saying. 31% of student athletes have bet on sports, and a lot of them are doing it regularly. Some of them are college football players betting on college football, one way or another. Now, you want to think that they're betting on their own team to win.
How do we know? We don't know.
We just don't know. And I don't know. I don't know if the cat can be put back into the bag on something like this, to be honest. And because sports have aligned themselves so much with gambling in terms of advertising, and it's been so normalized, and gambling is legal now, whereas in the past, you had to go to Las Vegas, or you had to have a bookie place bets for you, and that was illegal. So, but now it's been legalized, and that endangers sports as a whole.
Well, look at the chief promoters of it all. I mean, still the largest viewing network in sports is ESPN, and I can tell you, it's like every half an hour, it's BetMGM, you know, Sports Kings, you name it, and they're actually doing commercials separate from just the drop-ins during the shows. I mean, I just if I didn't want to keep up with everything that's going on in the sports world, I would just turn it off because
Well, and
it's so cynical.
yeah, and it's not just the four-letter network that is doing that. Even though they put, that they're always putting the gambling line on as part of the preview on the bottom of the screen, in the ticker that runs across. But you can always win $100,000 of Terry Bradshaw's money, and the pregame shows, they've got the hosts on NFL, going over what they think the bets are going to be, what the best prop bets are, so there are going to be ramifications to it, and they're sending mixed messages. And if they don't think players are going to want to bet on these games, especially the younger people who are growing up to play pro sports later on, I mean, all this stuff is normalized for them. And
it's not only that. Just what you point out, locally, I'm watching right now NBC Boston, which has sports talk shows on from early in the morning all the way till like midnight. And right now, I'm watching one show right now that has up there BetMGM. It's right behind the host, and so everybody is seeing it. And it's like everything else. Once you normalize it, and now it's part of the American ethos, that sports and betting go hand in hand, and guys like Stephen A. Smith are constantly talking about it. That's what the impressionable kids. It's just like the minute you give a young person, I'm walking in the streets now and see 8, 9, 10-year-olds with the same cell phone that I have. And I'm saying, what the hell? Who are the parents that let them do this? But it's normalized now. It's all part of our lives, and all it does for me, it just makes me more cynical about it. The pros are the pros, but when I watch college football, I really accept the fact that these are hired Hessians, and that's all it is. I don't care about any of their stories, all the bull crap that this kid came from nothing, and let me tell you a little bit about his background. I'm going like, just another better. That's my attitude now about this whole situation. So
well, and the sports media, yeah, and the sports media is talking about gambling all the time. And furthermore, the other thing I want to bring up while we're talking about this. Now, there are a lot of people in the sports media who are going ape crazy about Brenden Sorsby and betting, and some of those are the same people who are upset that Pete Rose isn't allowed into the Hall of Fame. And these people are up in arms about this injunction and giving the kid a chance to play, and they're the same people who will tell you that Pete Rose shouldn't have been banned from baseball. Okay? But these are the exact same behaviors going on. Pete Rose bet on his own team. Okay? Brenden Sorsby bet on his own team. Okay? So these are the same behaviors. So now, I don't think it's right. And I'm going to say this. Division I college football isn't what we grew up with, and for us purists out there, we're always going to watch it. Probably we're lifers, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of good competition at the Division II level. There's a lot of good competition at the Division III level. And if you want to watch some college football that doesn't have that kind of nonsense going on, then I strongly suggest, that we start watching that. We start watching the local high school game. We start watching the HBCU games. They're not as affected by the money and the transfers as Division I college football is, the behemoth.
Yeah. But Michael, believe me, we're being naive to think that people are going to watch us. People want to watch Ohio State and Michigan. They want to watch Texas and all this other stuff. And by the way, I'm sure they all have bets on it. So that's it. There's certain games that I will watch because of the nature of the matchups and stuff like that. But I'm not kidding myself. Listen, I don't look at the NFL the same way anymore either. I mean, I watch it because you're looking at people that play at their highest level, and they're great athletes. And like when I first started to watch in 1946, they were great athletes for their time, but they could no way match size, speed, ability, intelligence. They couldn't match what you see today. But I'm not being naive in thinking, wow, 32 NFL teams, 16 of them stink. So I'm going to try and watch the games that really mean anything. So if I lose the red zone because of all the things that have been going on, that's fine. It's just I'm losing something that would tell me how many teams really are lousy out of the 32 teams. So when I look at it on the professional level, that's one thing. When I look at it on the college level, I say, okay, that's one step below professional, but they are professional.
They are professional now. And, I'm still going to watch big-time college football. But I have enjoyed the smaller schools that I've started to watch. And, of course, living in Texas and having been a play-by-play announcer for high school football in Texas, high school football is fantastic to watch as well. So anyway, Upton, just to wrap up, we just got a minute or two left, but wanted to get into this. We watched the Spurs and Knicks, the NBA finals, and the Spurs. The Spurs, the choke finals, as you said. The Spurs having a huge lead. That brought us to recall the Super Bowl between the Patriots and Falcons, and also the divisional playoffs between the Oilers and Bills, which two huge leads lost in NFL history. It occasionally happens in sports that there is a collapse like that, but it isn't very often.
It is not. But I would put those three that you just mentioned at the top. But the biggest single choke I've ever seen was last night. And yes, we can compare. In fact, it's funny because a lot of people were tweeting afterwards, as I normally do a lot. They call it X, but it's still tweeting afterwards. And Adam Schefter of ESPN immediately compared it to the Patriots' 28-3 comeback against the Falcons, and I would say that's true. But of all of the games I watched in every sport, baseball, football, basketball, even hockey, that I've watched since 1945-46, last night was the biggest coaching choke and the biggest choke by any team that I've ever seen in my personal history. I just could not believe that last night that it looked like your favorite team, the Spurs, who could have been 4-1 or 4-2 or up or won the whole thing 4-0, gave away the second half with the dumbest coach I've ever seen. Instead of understanding, it's like taking a field goal every time instead of going for analytics for the first down to try and score a touchdown in football, to what happened last night where they were hitting on all cylinders, the Spurs, in the first half, particularly on their threes. In the second half, with a 29-point lead, they kept taking the threes instead of, like we saw with the Patriots and the Falcons, instead of running the clock down and putting yourself in a position just to run the clock out the whole second half, they chose to keep taking the threes. And as you know, if you keep going with the analytics like Detroit does and go for the first down instead of taking the automatic field goal, it's going to kill you. And it did last night, and I have never seen it, including the Patriots and the Bills, a game against Houston. I have never seen such blatant poor coaching as last night.
Well, now the game that I thought of was the Bills coming back from 35-3 against the Oilers. But I remember watching that game, and it was 28-3 at halftime in favor of the Oilers. But I remember watching that game and thinking at halftime, this just doesn't seem like the Oilers have dominated this game. They were way ahead in points. And I thought when it was 28-3, I thought, Buffalo could chip away at this and maybe come back. But then, right at the beginning of the second half, the Bills threw an interception, and the Oilers ran it back for a touchdown. And that made it 35-3. And I thought, like, oh, well, okay, there's no way that they're going to come back. But they did. They got the momentum. They got an onside kick. And, of course, the famous comeback, and they came back to win. But, that it sometimes happens in sports. And if you can build that big of a lead, occasionally the other team can respond in the second half of the game. It doesn't happen that often, but it's always got to be a combination of the other team getting hot and the team that's leading making mistakes down the line and making multiple mistakes down the line. And that's what happened in all three of those games.
But what we saw last night was a blatant coaching decision that his team followed. I couldn't believe it. I kept saying to myself, I can't believe I'm watching this. I've seen the other major upsets, comebacks, and I've seen some of the great comebacks in all sports of history. I mean, the Red Sox coming back against the Yankees and winning in 7 games after being down 3-0. I mean, was one of the greatest that I've ever seen. But that was over, again, a series of games and great comebacks. But last night, and here's what I think, we talk about gambling, what is really killing the NBA, and that is the three-point shot. If you were playing regular basketball and you had that big a lead, or let's say instead of 29 points, let's say it was a 15 or 20-point lead, how many teams in NBA history would blow a lead like that? Last night, the three-point shot is all the things that I hate about it, because instead of playing really good basketball, and this includes Wembanyama himself, he kept taking threes too. For what reason? Do you need to do it?
Well, and that brings us back now. The NFL version of the three-point shot is the two-point conversion, And for those of you who remember the Bengals Chiefs AFC Championship game, as well as I did, because there's another. I think that might be, in some ways, now that we're talking about it, the best comparison, because Kansas City had a huge lead. They're going into halftime, and all of a sudden, they're like, oh, well, let's go for two and rub it in their faces right before halftime. Well, the Bengals stopped the two-point conversion, and then after that, they went in the locker room, one, with momentum, and two, they were mad. And they came back out, and they played probably the best second half of football that they had played that season, especially defensively. And that put Mahomes into playing what was his worst half of football, probably in his career, certainly for the playoffs. I mean, Mahomes did not look like Patrick Mahomes in the second half of that game. And it all could be traced back, in my opinion, to going for the two-point conversion when there isn't any need to. There's no point to go for the two-point conversion unless you're down and you need to tie it. And that's the only way you can tie it. You know, that's my opinion. If you got 4 seconds left in the game and you're down by 2 and you just scored a touchdown, that's when you go for the 2 points.
Well, it just points out. Now, football to me is a sport where the coach really, really counts. Baseball, not as much. Hockey, not as much. But last night proved to me that in basketball, it's always been the stars. It's LeBron. It's Michael Jordan. It's, this guy. It's Tatum. It's Brown. It's all of these, Jokic, all of these great players. So what do we need a coach for? Last night proved to me still in the NBA, a coach can be very, very important, particularly in a playoff game. And what we saw last night was an example of a coach not calling the proper timeouts in the second half and not calling a timeout and telling his team, let's run the clock down, take the full 24 seconds, which they didn't do, forget the threes, let's work the ball inside and do all the things we can, get it to Wemby. He did none of that. That squarely is on the coach of the Spurs last night, and it proves again the 3-point shot. It's going to be here forever, but it was the thing that put the dagger in their heart along with the coach. And you very rarely ever see that again. What happened last night, but it was one of those nights, and it proves again that coaching is still important no matter what the sport is.
All right, well, everybody, thank you for listening to this edition of Unvarnished Football. We look forward to bringing you the next one. And, go visit don'tbetonit.org. Read the NCAA's literature. Find out, for real facts. Don't just listen to people spew out on TV or on sports radio or just bash people or give an opinion or a hot take. Go and get those materials, look at them yourselves, and see how many kids are actually gambling on college sports. College athletes are betting on college sports, and it's more common than you might think.
Well, something, Michael, I just add to this. How many people really give a damn? I'm not sure how much they give a damn, but more importantly, we invite the public who listen to the show. We invite your comments. Leave your comments with us and let us know what you feel, what you like, and what you don't like.
All right. And you can reach us at unvarnishedfootball@gmail.com.